Hi, my name is David Moss, actor here in Los Angeles. Use prop guns all the time when I play a police officer. I'm going to show you a photo when I play an officer. This was just the other day on a music video and had a shootout, well, a fake shootout with two of the rappers in the video. I'll show you another photo too as well, talking about gun control. Here's another shoot I did playing a court bailiff. Anyway, what crazy times we're living, right? When we went to school, it was never like this. Most of the times we had to worry was just about a teen girl getting pregnant or pot smokers across the street. But gun reform definitely is a complicated issue, many facets, including the Second Amendment, mental illness. And I have a few gun reform ideas. I know you guys break for recess, by the way, the Congress. By Friday of next week, on the 24th of June, before the July 4th holiday. So I hope that you don't lose momentum on this, because I guess historically, from what I was reading, that sometimes the momentum on gun reform legislation gets lost. The momentum gets lessened, gets slower. So I hope before you leave for the recess, the July 4th holiday, please keep it up, especially now. There's a poll by Yahoo News that most Americans say these gun measures could stop mass shootings, but the Senate isn't considering them. So that's where you have this major conflict. One of the ideas that majority of Americans would like to see, especially Democrat Americans, is expanding government mental health spending in public K through 12 schools. And by the way, Republicans also adhere to that tweak to the gun reform legislation, expanding government mental health spending in public K through 12 schools. Spend more on public security in K through 12 schools. 76 Republicans support this as well. So those two components, most Americans, Republican or Democrat, either side of the aisle, as they say, support that. Other items that Americans support: expanding criminal and mental background checks to buy guns, including, this is really important, juvenile records. So include juvenile records in the background check. And by the way, 63% of Republicans are in favor of this. And expand red flag laws. You've probably heard that over and over again, red flag laws. But make it easier for law enforcement to take guns from people reported to be a threat to the general public. But only 39, this is the shocker, okay? And by the way, I'm a moderate with slightly conservative leanings, okay? And this is a shocker to me, okay? Keep in mind, like I'm not a bleeding heart liberal or Democrat. But only 39%, almost 40% of Republicans support this. That's not a lot compared to over 80% of Democrats supporting, again, expanding the red flag laws to make it easier for law enforcement to take guns from people reported to be a threat to the public. So my view is to raise the age limit to 21 from 18 for buying a gun. And by the way, almost 60% of Republicans support that. Background checks at gun shows include, again, the juvenile records in that. Mandatory background checks at gun stores as well. Okay, here's my proposal. Require gun owners insurance. They have to have insurance liability on the shoulders of gun owners to safely store guns or face jail time or fines, much like insurance on a car or home. So if you have, let's say, 5 guns, you just one insurance policy. It's not like you're going to get charged each time. And yeah, the bad guys are going to get the guns, but this is just, we're talking about tweaks to gun legislation to help prevent things like this from happening. The bottom line is you got to think like this. You go, what could have prevented the shooting in Uvalde, the high school, right? 19 students got killed, 2 teachers, and not even including the gunman who committed suicide and shot himself. So the question is, what could have stopped them? Well, if the age limit was raised to 21, he was 18. That's one thing. And also gun shop owners should also have liability insurance. So if they sell the gun and somebody's 21 or over, that they're not going to be penalized if they went about selling that gun in a lawful way. That is, doing a background check. All right. I believe also there should be mandatory. This is my idea now, right? Out of the box, something that's not proposed other than the things I just discussed at the outset of this presentation. Mandatory online gun safety training, a quasi concealed carry training. What do I mean by that? You buy a gun, then you have to go to your computer. You have to, and we can have a government database. So people take this gun safety mandatory online training. And I believe it needs to be part of that gun insurance renewal, like every once or twice, like every once a year or once every 2 years, renewing this gun insurance. I think there should be a PR campaign by Congress about the local red flag law. So to remind people that to tell authorities about any suspicious person or behavior. This is where I think things fall through the cracks. I think there should be a mental health check evaluation part of the background check. We need to look, and I know there's HIPAA laws, right? The HIPAA laws say, that you can't, and this is where the issue comes. I always bring this up to people. There should be a mental illness database. I brought that up years ago after the Parkland shooting, about 4 years ago, right? I think 2018, Parkland, Florida, Parkland High School there. And I said, there should be a mental illness database. Every time this crops up, as far as these mass shootings, it's always somebody with a mental illness. This is profiling. And maybe the FBI needs to get into more of the profiling as well. It's another thing, right? Because we don't know what the FBI is looking into, what their knowledge is. And I know they stopped certain school shootings. But anyway, so to have a mental illness database, like you have, people on like go to the airport, what do they call it? The watch list, terrorist watch list, so something like that, mental illness. But again, you have to tweak the laws where it bypasses HIPAA law, HIPAA, HIPPA confidentiality laws. So I would remind your hardcore constituents that we're not taking away their Second Amendment rights. It always comes up. I get it. And that's the crux of this whole thing. People go, oh my, and they march on Washington, and you got people like me talking. But the bottom line is you're representing your constituents. You want to prolong your political career. I get that. But the courage is doing what's in your heart. What do you think is right in your heart? As opposed to your constituents, And I get that you got to, obviously, like Ted Cruz in Texas, he has to bend to his constituents. It pisses a lot of people off when he's so supportive of those gun laws, legislation in Texas, which is, what do they call Texas a gun state because it's, gun culture, because a lot of people have guns there. Same in Arizona where I used to live. I live here in Los Angeles. So, again, we need gun legislation. It's not just for schools, house of worship, shootings, but guns falling into the wrong hands of smash and grab and follow home robbery suspects as well. I have some other points too I just want to bring up. As far as the gun reform laws, it needs to be expanded, not just to this is the boyfriend loophole law, maybe you've heard about, where it's only someone who's a spouse or has a child with a victim of a gun violence that would be charged. So the boyfriend, there needs to be to change this loophole where the boyfriend can also be charged, not just somebody who's a spouse or has a child with the victim. I don't think Democrats should try to ban AR-15 rifles. I don't think the Republicans' constituents would go for it. Am I right? I think it would cite, your constituents would cite the Second Amendment as right to bear arms, and they're absolutely right about that. But those other things I mentioned, I think, are imperative and easy to fix and to enact. So the bottom line is vote on what's right in your heart, even if that conflicts with your constituents. That's bravery, in my view, to put your political career on the line like that. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak on this topic. Very important topic.